Andrew Kerr there, while Kenny MacAskill and Richard Baker are still with us. Richard Baker, let's pick up on the final point in that package. The Lord Advocate, Eilish Angelini, very recently in a BBC interview predicted that we are facing an apocalypse of alcohol-fuelled crime unless we make it less available. And she said one way of making it less available is to make it more expensive. That's the head of the prosecution service in Scotland. Now, there were a very long list of independent experts, from doctors to police officers, absolutely independent experts, who said the way ahead on this is to have a minimum unit pricing of alcohol. Do you accept now that you did the Scottish community a great disservice in Labour by voting that down?
No, I don't. We do have to tackle the relationship between alcohol and crime. But to suggest that minimum unit price is some kind of panacea is just nonsense. For example, Isabel, there was a report done at Paul McYoung Offenders Institute which interviewed some of the offenders there who committed crimes while they were drunk. They made it clear that the price of the alcohol would make no difference to them. They'd have got hold of that drink anyway. They'd have been drunk at the time of their offence. But yes, we need action. It's got to be action which works. That's why we suggested, for example, drink banning orders, alcohol treatment and testing orders for offenders whose crimes are linked to alcohol misuse, and indeed action on caffeinated alcohol products like Buckfast, which have been linked to violent crime.
There would have been no loss to anybody if you'd allowed it to go through with a sunset clause in it, given the vast bulk of expert opinion that supported it.
Look, it wasn't even clear if it was a legal move within European law, but look, the point is that what we need to have is action on alcohol-related crime which works. That means also, for example, tough and effective implementation of our current licensing laws, which aren't often being used enough, and we have to see precious few prosecutions under the current laws which are in place. That should be got right first,
so
before we have this adventure of minimum unit.
Well,
we do not feel minimum unit price would be a panacea. It's not the right way forward, not the right way forward to tackle alcohol-related crime in this country.
Kenny MacAskill, if we look at another massive issue of public concern with knife crime, many thousands of Scots have signed petitions saying there should be longer sentences for knife crime and there should be mandatory sentences for anyone caught carrying a knife. There's a very strong feeling about this. Why are you telling these people they're wrong?
Well, we do have a booze and blades crisis and problem in Scotland. That name and terminology, booze and blade, came in from a predecessor, Cathy Jimison. We're taking action. Can I just say on booze, Labour's action's been shameful. We supported in opposition the bringing in of the smoking ban. We supported it in opposition because it was the right thing for the national interest. Scotland's a better place because of the smoking ban. We'd be better placed if we had minimum pricing, not just the Lord Advocate, but we heard Karen McCluskey from the Violence Reduction Unit. But it's tied in with the Blades matter. What we've got to do is to deal with this problem in Scotland. Action has been taken. Under Ian Gray, when he was the Deputy Justice Minister, knife crime went up 12%. Knife crime, along with other crime, has been falling in Scotland. How have we been doing it? A visible police presence to deter those who would be bad citizens and to reassure those who would be good citizens.
But mandatory sentences, supporters argue, would be a further deterrent.
Well, what's happening is that those 1,000 police officers are carrying out record numbers of stop and search. In Strathclyde Police Region alone, almost 250,000 stop and searches were carried out, and what it showed was that less people were carrying a knife, but those who were carrying, more were getting caught and they were going to jail for longer. The average sentence for a knife possession now is 9 months. Labour want to reduce it to 6 months. This should be a matter for the judiciary. You can get 4 years simply for possessing a knife. In Scotland, the simple possession of a knife, you can be given a jail sentence of up to 4 years. The average sentence is 9 months, and Labour want to make it 6 months. That's crazy.
That's simply wrong. I can't believe we've got a Justice Secretary here who can't understand the basic proposal. It's a mandatory minimum of 6 months. The judge will be able to give any sentence after that they see fit. And also, we doubled the maximum sentences for knife crime, which is why we're seeing sentences increase. But we need to go further. And the complacency from Kenny MacAskill on this won't wash. In his own police force area, in the past year, in Lothian Borders, we've seen a 22% increase in knife crime. Knife crime now accounts for 44% of murders in Scotland. That is why the status quo will not suffice. We have to go further with this message of carry a knife, go to jail. If we don't do that, the problems will increase.
How do you actually manage that? The prisons are overcrowded as it is. The Lib Dems estimate this will cost £80 million more a year. You undermine judicial discretion in all of this. How do you deliver?
Well, in terms of our policy, the Liberal Democrat estimate was some £21 million a year. But look, when you look at the cost of knife crime to our National Health Service in Scotland, it's £500 million per year. And also, that's before you talk about the human cost to families and communities who fall victim to knife crime. Our point of view is, and the intention is to reduce knife crime, not simply to have more people in jail. But I say, what is the cost to our communities, our families in Scotland, of not pursuing this policy?
Kenny MacAskill, if we look at the scrapping of short-term prison sentences, there are concerns that some of the alternatives in place are not actually adequately funded at the moment and are too slow, and that can only get worse in the current economic climate.
Well, to deal with those concerns, we've put in record funding. We've put in additional funds just this year, and we're taking steps to make sure that we improve. We accept that things could do better. Some areas in particular have faced major challenges. We've made sure that we resource them better, and we're making sure that we make it speedier. But what we're doing, as with knife crime, is we're doing what works. We have a problem with booze and blades, and we're seeking to tackle that. In terms of prison sentences, what we're aware in short-term prison sentences is that they don't work. 3/4 of people given a prison sentence of 6 months or less reoffend within 2 years. 2/3 given a tough community sentence don't reoffend. And in Scotland, we've got to break the cycle of reoffending of the same people going in and out, being a nuisance to our communities, given free bed and board in our prisons at our taxpayers' expense when they should be, as we saw in that clip, out there doing some good work in our communities. And I can tell you that snow clearing was very well received by the old age pensioners, because the snow wouldn't have been cleared if it hadn't for those young boys who had to do back and pay some time for the crimes they've committed. But it was better for them to be looking after the pensioner than to be given 3 square meals a day and free bed and board and Sockner Pullman.
So, Richard Baker, you think that is not actually being delivered at the moment, but Labour's position is that you would scrap automatic early release, but actually you wouldn't take any time off the prison sentences. It would be exactly the same length of prison, so the status quo would remain.
What we'd have is transparency. In a moment, victims don't understand how long an offender will actually have in jail at the end of a case, and that's not good enough. But we have to come back to this issue of community sentencing because it is crucial. The reality is, unfortunately, that under the current community sentencing regime, which is woefully underfunded by Kenny MacAskill, 1/3 of community sentences are breached. A fraction start in time. In my area, it was taking 2 years for some offenders to serve a 120-hour community sentence. And the very first new community payback order, unfortunately, was breached. Not 1 hour of it was served. That actually threatens public confidence in community sentencing. And I do not understand why Kenny scrapped our plans for a pilot community court in Glasgow, which would have delivered swift and effective community justice.
Right, Kenny MacAskill, we just have seconds, and I want to ask you, you're building a new prison at Low Moss. Can you afford to open it?
Yes.
OK, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed. Kenny MacAskill, Richard Baker, thank you for coming in.